Hey everyone. So given the impending results that are coming up with Harry's court case, I thought I would do a bit more of a dive into their Archewell philanthropy name change. So obviously most of you know that it went from foundation to philanthropies, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a bit of a dive into this because something just doesn't sit right with me, and I thought I need to kind of look into what could be going on. And I have found some very, very interesting information. So I hope you will stick with me because, as you know, well, most of you do, I like to find the truth regardless what is being spun on the mainstream media and social media. This is a channel that delves into what is really going on. So if you like this type of thing along with psychology, then this could be the channel for you. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already because it's free to do so. That being said, go grab your cuppa, sit back, relax as we get into some tea, some truth with a touch of therapeutic psychology. So at the moment we are awaiting the court ruling, and just to be clear in case anyone is not quite sure what we're waiting on, I had looked into this because I thought this sort of ties into a little bit of what's kind of going on given it's about money. So we're awaiting the court costs ruling following a 2-day consequential hearing on the 29th to 30th July regarding who pays the unprecedented legal fees. The judge announced he would reserve his decision and deliver a written ruling later. So, and this is supposed to be happening at the end of this month. What we're going to have, because it says here it's anticipated late August 2026. So we're going to have the final bill. So A&L is seeking over 34.5 million in costs and has requested an immediate interim payment of nearly 10 million. Harry's team have offered 8 million with a deadline of the 28th of August 2026. Indemnity costs. The judge will decide whether Harry's group must pay on an indemnity basis, covering all of A&L's bills without checking if they were proportionate due to what the defence called unreasonable conduct and public statements attacking the court. Harry's an idiot, I'm sorry, but he is. Permission to appeal. So the judge's upcoming written order will also dictate whether Prince Harry and his co-claimants are granted permission to appeal the original July dismissal. So that's what we're waiting on at the moment. And the fact that Harry attacked the judge so publicly before this has even happened is just just shows you how reactionary he is. You know, when he gets angry about something, his brain doesn't kick in. Think about this before opening your mouth. He just reacts. And this is the result. So there could very well be the big possibility that the judge is going to be furious about that. Well, I'm sure he's not happy, and throw everything at Harry. So it's going to be interesting to see when this happens. As some said, I don't know whether some have said it's coming tomorrow, but either way, it is supposed to be by the end of August. So I'll keep an eye on it. And obviously when it comes out, I will do a video on it. But this is to do with Archewell. Now and I know that most of us are the same. So when they changed from Archewell Foundation to philanthropies, I knew straight away, and I think most of us did, that there was something very hinky going on. They don't have many donations coming in now, and I do think that is a high probability of why they wanted to do this. But in digging, I have found some quite interesting things. Now, I also want to remind you that back in 2021, they put money into, which means they also, so put shares and profits, they get profits from Ethic. And if you remember, I did a video on this, and if I can find it, I will put it up here as a thing. So you can watch it afterwards or go watch this first and come back. But when you give the fact that Harry and Meghan are trying to proclaim that their mission statement is to clean up online media, especially with children, it's, blah, blah, blah. We all know what they've tried to say. But when you're partnering and getting profits or having shares in Facebook, Meta, Google, which I think it's all under that same umbrella, oil fracking, weapons, it starts to become very, 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 very murky. So we've already got the fact that they have put into, and they're also connected to the media as well. So this ethic is also has got shares and gets profits from media outlets, certain media outlets. So that's also quite interesting. You've also got Harry's link to the Aspen Institute. So we've got these little things that are happening. And then we have this. By dismantling the standard Archewell Foundation, set up and reconstructing it into Archewell Philanthropies, Harry and Meghan transitioned to what is known as a fiscal sponsorship model. This change fundamentally alters how and if the public can track the money. So the first thing is the legal cloaking device, the fiscal sponsorship. In the old way, under the foundation, as a traditional 501c3, hope I got that right, public charity, the Archewell Foundation was legally required to file a highly detailed annual tax return with the IRS, known as Form 990. This public document forced them to itemize their exact total revenue, executive salaries, overhead costs, and line-by-line breakdowns of every single grant given to specific organizations. Example, exactly how much went to a children's charity versus a PR firm. The new way, under philanthropies, under the fiscal sponsorship model adopted during their late 2025 restructure, Archewell Philanthropies legally operates under the umbrella of a much larger third-party parent non-profit organization. The black hole is, because Archewell is no longer an independent tax entity, they no longer have to file their own individual Form 990 to the IRS. Instead, their financial intake and payouts are lumped into the massive hundreds of pages long tax filings of their financial fiscal sponsor. So finding out exactly how much money went to a specific children's cause becomes almost impossible for outside audits. Number two, the power of impact reports and audits. So because they are no longer legally bound to the public tax disclosure, the public must rely entirely on self-published impact reports. These reports are slickly produced marketing brochures. They are excellent, highlighting narrative achievements such as launching campaigns against online harm or funding partnerships with parent networks, but they rarely provide audited, itemized financial data. So for instance, independent watchdogs like Charity Watch have publicly criticized Archewell for reporting in federal filings that their books are independently audited, while consistently failing or declining to provide those actual audits to researchers upon request. So they're refusing to show them. And I'm sorry, but one, you kind of got to say why, and two, what are they getting from this? Because Harry and Meghan don't do anything unless they benefit from it, which, okay, we can argue the fact that most of us do stuff like that. But if you've gone from something that, say, is working like the foundation, and knowing that actually being transparent, because you've got to look at the royal foundation, right? And everything that happens with the royal family, William and Catherine, everything is transparent. But suddenly, now, they've gone from being transparent to not. So number three, the shell game of funding announcements. Without line item tax returns, the public is left relying on press releases, which can obscure where money actually originates. So when a high-profile philanthropy announces a massive six-figure donation to a children's cause, like their public gifts to Save the Children or Youth Blast injury studies, the public assumes the money came straight out of the couple's personal pockets or a dedicated endowment, when in reality, because the public cannot see the underlying ledger, those donations are frequently a pass-through money collected from anonymous billionaire donors, pulled into Archewell's private accounts and then pushed back out to take the public credit. So basically, they don't donate. and that's not a lot different in a sense from Archewell foundations, but this way it's hidden. So they can get shady billionaire donors, and the money gets funneled in, and then it gets pushed through as Archewell donated. So they come out looking great, all the while getting these shady donors involved. Ultimately, shifting to a philanthropy model allows public figures to retain all the positive public relations of doing charity work while legally closing the door on public financial scrutiny. So basically, where it was that you and I could find out what they were doing, now nobody can. So there's no getting around this from a public accountability standpoint. Transitioning from a transparent public foundation to an opaque private philanthropy model is a massive regression. So in a way, in my opinion, if they were getting massive donations still, because I do think that what triggered this was the scrutiny they were getting, because if you remember, it came out that they'd paid, is it one of their directors, like a huge, like 6-figure sum or something for working a few weeks, etc. And I think that, like with everything, they don't want the public scrutiny. They want to be able to move this money around and not have anyone find out what's going on. They also want to hide who gives them donations, because in my opinion, the donations from decent people maybe have stopped coming in. So they're now going to do some shady dealings, and none of us can find out what exactly is going on. The problem, which is what I've said before, is that they still carry the global cachet of the royal family. They still hold royal titles, and they are still on the royal website. So by definition, it shows that almost there's still this link, because even though they've stepped down as working royals, if they were now Harry and Meghan, or, without the Duke and Duchess title, and they were not on the royal website, I still think it should be frowned upon, but you'd think, okay, but they're not. They are on the royal website, albeit the royal family don't talk about them, and there's nothing that like up and coming with Harry and Meghan on the royal website. They're just right down the bottom, but they are still on there. Harry is still in line to the throne, albeit again way down. Doesn't matter though, he's still connected to the royal family in a massive way. So this to me looks terrible. It's a massive grey area. In my opinion, because he's connected to the royal family, whilst he holds titles, whilst he is on the royal website, whilst he is in line of succession, then everything should be transparent in the same exact way. It shouldn't matter that he's not a working royal anymore. He's still utilising and profiting from being a royal. In my opinion, the late Queen, bless her heart, made a massive mistake when they chose not to, whatever the real truth behind Megxit and what happened and why they didn't come back after a year, those titles should have been gone. It should have been, if you don't come back within a year, you lose everything. The titles go into abeyance, you're no longer working royals, and you're off the royal website. Because in all fairness, they've taken Andrew off. There are other royals that are not on there. So why are they still on there? Why is Harry in the line of succession? This should have been done. Now what you've got is this massive mess, this grey area where Harry and Meghan can utilise and merch from having the connection to the royal family. And it's made worse by this recent fake, like Harry, Meghan and the kids coming over. That's been made worse. So it's like, what are you playing at here? One of the things I think is literally like, in a sense, what I've just discussed, but in a way it weaponizes privacy. So the only benefit to changing this structure is the elimination of public scrutiny. Under the old foundation model, the media poured over their IRS Form 990 filings every year. This led to highly damaging, deeply embarrassing headlines that Harry and Meghan despised. The drop in donation headlines. In late 2023, tax filings revealed that Archewell donations had plummeted by $9 million. That's $11 million in a single year, leading to press coverage framing them as a failing brand. And that's the other thing, is that especially with Meghan, she would hate this. She would not want people to think they're failing. So the fact that they've dropped $11 million in a year, especially given who they are, that's terrible. The overhead scrutiny. So public tax records force them to disclose, and this is what I said before, that they paid their executive director a massive 6-figure salary for working 1 hour a week. So actually that was worse than what I said, triggering fierce public backlash. The delinquency scandal. In 2024, the California Registry of Charitable Trusts briefly declared Archewell delinquent for failing to submit their annual fees and paperwork on time, causing a PR nightmare. So by shifting to a philanthropy model under a fiscal sponsor, they have literally knocked those headlines on. They've gone. If there are no public tax returns to read, the media can never again report on a drop in their funding, how much they pay their staff, or whether their paperwork is late. So number 2, the danger of expenses and pass-throughs. In a traditional foundation, travel, luxury hotel stays, security, and private jets cannot easily be written off as charitable. They'd have to really, this would be scrutinized. But hidden under a philanthropy model, the lines get incredibly blurry. And here we go. The corporate blend, the Harry and Meghan operate Archewell Audio, which is their media, Archewell Productions, Netflix, and also Archewell Philanthropies. So because they literally put them all into one pot, the philanthropy books are now private. It is structurally impossible for the public to know if a high-priced flight, a luxury hotel stay, or a personal security detail is being funded by their commercial business deals, their personal wealth, or money intended for charitable causes. And there you go. So because they've lumped everything in now, they can go on a private jet and say, well, this was a business expense because we flew to somewhere, and and they've only got to meet, say, one person, have an hour sit down discussion about, I don't know. And I think this is what they did with Australia. So they organized these, like the speech, things that he did, and then all of the things that they did, the stays in the luxury hotel and everything else that they did, all of her expenses, hotel stays, flights, whatever it was, the car hire, it all would have come out of these whatever donations they've got coming in. And this is what I mean. And they can just charge that as expenses. I mean, they're not the only celebrity to do this, don't get me wrong, but I don't care about other celebrities. At the end of the day, I care about these two because they're utilizing being royal to do it. And this is why, to me, this is a betrayal of the royal playbook. So this is where the connection to the royal family becomes particularly jarring. The British royal family's entire modern survival strategy relies on radical financial transparency to maintain public trust. The sovereign grant, the King's household, must publish exhaustive line item financial ledgers every single year, detailing exactly how every pound of taxpayer and estate money is spent, down to the utility bills and train fares. The Royal Foundation, similar type of thing. The Prince and Princess of Wales Foundation operates under strict UK Charity Commission rules. Anyone can log online right now and view their precise audited balance sheets. By trading public transparency for corporate secrecy, Harry and Meghan chose to operate like a modern, ultra-wealthy Silicon Valley celebrity couple, rather than a traditional royal house. They want the public status that comes with royal titles, but they actively reject the public accountability that also validates those titles. So it basically leaves the public in a position where we just have to take their word for it. And we know how much their word is worth nothing. So let's now look into the fiscal sponsor. The fiscal sponsor is somebody called Global Impact. It's a massive, well-established 501c3 tax-exempt non-profit network. By stepping under the giant administrative umbrella, Harry and Meghan essentially outsource their entire back office. This structural shift changes the mechanics of their operations in several critical ways. So they are now under a legal and financial umbrella. So how a fiscal sponsor operates is it kind of acts like the parent. So it's like the primary financial trustee. Now, the payment loophole, legally donors can no longer write checks directly to the Archewell Foundation. So you'd think that would be good, right? Instead, they are written to Global Impact with a memo line earmarking the funds for Archewell. So they do still get it, but it's given to them, and then it's basically like, yeah, but this is for Archewell. The Global Impact then takes the money into its multi-million-dollar account, holds it and distributes it according to Archewell's requests. Now, bearing in mind that Archewell is pretty much Harry and Meghan. Global Impact does not provide this cloaking service out of charity. So stand or fiscal sponsors typically charge an administrative fee, usually taking between 5 and 15% of all incoming donations, just to manage the accounting, compliance and legal filings. So even though, and I'll get into a bit more about Global Impact in a minute, what I found that's very interesting. So even though they do everything above board, because when I looked into this, they do everything above board. There is nothing controversial about the actual company and how they run. But it's interesting that Harry and Meghan have chosen to get rid of, and this is why the staff went, right? So this is why they got rid of their staff, because they no longer need a lot of those staff, because now it's all under Global Impact. But it's interesting that they're prepared to pay Global Impact whatever their payment is, rather than stay as a foundation. So this tells you that it was very serious for them, why they needed to do this. And I think it wasn't just about, well, it was about the public scrutiny, but I think it's more so about who the money is coming from. That, I think, is why they needed to hide this. So the ultimate payoff for Harry and Meghan is the IRS filing process. Global Impact manages dozens of different philanthropic funds, charitable initiatives and projects under its corporate shell. So when tax season arrives, Global Impact files one single massive tax return covering every entity it sponsors. So Archewell individual line item spending, including executive perks, executive travel, write-offs and controversial great targets, it's completely swallowed up and mixed into Global Impact's broader balance sheets. So for outside auditors looking for Archewell's numbers in Global Impact's tax filings is like looking for a needle in a haystack. They are hidden. So basically, partnering with a fiscal sponsor like Global Impact, it provides Harry and Meghan with the ultimate corporate shield. They retain the exact same public branding and can still solicit tax-deductible donations, but the mechanisms governing how that money is used are entirely hidden from the public eye. So like I say, when I started researching Global Impact and I was wanting to see if there was anything controversial about it, it come up no. It said Global Impact has not faced any major disqualifying financial scandals or corruption investigations. When looking at traditional charity watchdogs, they actually maintain highly favourable ratings. For example, major platforms like Charity Navigator and reviewers featured on Quora consistently rank Global Impact as a top-tier, highly transparent 501c3 organisation. So you'd think, oh, okay, well, there's nothing to see here. But this is Harry and Meghan. What Global Impacts are, they are transparency laundromats by design. So take that as you will. So when Global Impact follows the letter of the law perfectly, the primary service they sell to high net worth individuals is privacy. So watchdogs point out that organisations like Global Impact act as a legal shield. They allow wealthy public figures to benefit from the tax-deductible public fundraising without the burden of public oversight. So by absorbing Archewell into its corporate mass, Global Impact effectively shuts down the media's ability to audit Harry and Meghan's charitable efficacy. Critics argue that this undermines the democratic intent behind taxpayer charity laws, which are supposed to be trade tax breaks for total public accountability. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because obviously organisations like Global Impact manage massive funds for hundreds of different client projects. So By entering the global impact corporate network, Harry and Meghan didn't just buy financial privacy, they stepped into an ecosystem shared by actors and institutions that completely contradict their public stated progressive mission. So when you look at their extensive list of clients, and again, remember how with Ethic, we have the weapon manufacturers and oil companies, the anti-climate, anti-peace link. So Harry and Meghan's public mission statement emphasizes environment sustainability, climate justice, and peace building. However, Global Impact is the primary management vehicle for the combined federal campaign, which is the massive workplace giving campaign for all US federal employees, including the Department of Defense and military personnel. The hypocrisy is through this infrastructure, Global Impact actively processes millions of dollars in corporate donations, employee matches, and fundraising schemes tied directly to the defense industry, fossil fuel interests, and global defense contractors by utilizing a fiscal sponsor whose entire operational machinery is deeply enmeshed with the literal military industrial complex and corporate polluters. Harry and Meghan are relying on an infrastructure funded by the exact entities they publicly condemn. Number 2, radical left-wing dark money networks. Harry and Meghan consistently frame themselves as strictly neutral social impact change makers rather than political actors. However, when you look into Global Impact's closest corporate allies, they are deeply intertwined with networks like Archewell Advisors, 131152. I don't know what these numbers are, but that's what it says. And the Hopewell Fund. So the reality is Archewell Advisors is a massive multi-billion-dollar progressive consulting firm. They operate a network of non-profits like Hopewell and New Venture Fund that critics on both sides of the aisle call the ultimate dark money laundromat. So this is for American left-wing political operations. These funds specialize in taking massive anonymous donations from billionaires and filtering them into aggressive political lobbying, partisan campaigns, and attack ads by using the exact same operational playbook and sharing a network with Arabella adjacent groups. Archewell Philanthropies looks less like a pure humanitarian project and more like a slick American-style political action committee, PAC, designed to push an ideological agenda. And if that doesn't tell you how deep this goes, because I've said before that I think that Meghan has political aspirations. And it's possible that Harry in his delusion believes he could somehow get into something, I don't know. Because he's definitely stepped into being a lot more political in some of the things that he talks about. But I definitely think Meghan has got her eye on something, and you've got them literally in bed with Ethic, who is also connected, the Aspen Institute, and now this. And even though, okay, I can't prove it, the prove it game, but I'm sorry, but there's just too many dots here not to connect and think there's something very, very, very shady going on here. So number 3 is highly controversial international non-profit. So Harry and Meghan's brand is intensely focused on women's empowerment, safety, and modern social justice. Yet Global Impact's Charity Alliance roster includes massive international organizations that have faced intense, dark public reckonings. Global Impact explicitly handles fundraising and administrative routing for giant NGOs like CARE, like CARE, and World Vision. Over the years, these massive bureaucratic NGOs have been plagued by devastating whistleblower scandals, including systematic tracking of local funds, top-heavy executive salaries, and horrific allegations of exploitation by field workers in vulnerable developing nations. Furthermore, some of the older religious charities in the network have historically maintained deeply conservative, anti-LGBTQ internal policies that completely clash, again, with Harry and Meghan's public allyship. So again, you know, when you've got Harry and Meghan that proclaim to be supportive of all of these things, again, they are under this umbrella of an organization that works with some very, very shady people. Number 4, the Fortune 500 exploitation loophole. So Harry and Meghan frequently lecture corporations on digital safety, fair pay and ethical supply chains. But the reality is Global Impact's primary revenue model relies on setting up corporate employee-assisted funds and matching programs for Fortune 500 companies. Many of these corporate clients use Global Impact's charity programs as a PR shield to mask union-busting sweatshop labor in their global supply chains or massive underpayment of their frontline workers. Global Impact essentially provides the corporate wellness and mental health initiatives that allow these mega corporations to look ethical on the surface and on paper, but by partnering with them, Archewell is shaking hands with the ultimate corporate greenwashing machine. So they help people look great on the surface, and underneath it's anything but. So now it kind of makes sense why Harry and Meghan would go with Global Impact, because what is it they do? On the surface, look at how great we are. Look at how humanitarian we are. Look at all the things that we try to do to help people, but actually underneath it's anything but. So the conclusion here for me is, if Harry and Meghan associated with any organisation linked to a weapon manufacturer, a political dark money, or labour exploiting corporations, it would spark a global media firestorm. But by hiding under Global Impact, they can claim they are completely clean while quietly utilising a corporate apparatus that thrives on the money of the very people, corporations and political machines they publicly tell the rest of the world to reject. And that's the point. It's that they can hide under Global Impact, the umbrella of Global Impact. It's almost like, I'm hiding under the skirt of my parent, and my parent's protecting me. Global Impact is protecting them. They would never have been able to do this in the UK. I'm sorry, I'm getting very hot in here. And I think that in one way I recognise, because as I was reading this, I did and ah whether to do this video, because you're starting to delve into very dark territory here. And, I could risk my channel, because they could, if they think I'm getting too close to something, especially as I grow as a channel, I could get shut down, because the reality is this is what they do. And what's interesting, I was watching a series called Scandal. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's an American series. It's very good, actually. And there's a character in it called Olivia Pope, and she's called something called a fixer. And before I sort of say what I'm going to say, I just want to clarify that I'm not just single-handedly pointing fingers at America here, because I'm aware that there is corruption everywhere. But this is just because they are in America, and it just made me think of this. And it does kind of create me to think that the extreme lengths they went to, so high profile people, if there's a problem, they can bring in someone that's like a fixer who basically, well, what it says on the tin, they fix the problem, and they do it in various ways. And they also touch on how they can change the media landscape. They can buy, in a sense, they've got the media, there are certain people in the media that they can go to and say, right, well, I need you to run this story, or I need you to bench that story. And I think we know that because we've seen it within the royal family. We know that when things happen, and I think that's exactly what happened with Harry with this, when he went to visit his father and they lied and said that Meghan and the kids were there. Because in my opinion, why not have a photograph? But anyway, so we know that they can change the media landscape, but I think it's more darker than that. These type of companies that run these type of things are very, very shady. And again, you just have to look at why. Why would somebody like Harry and Meghan, connected to the British royal family, go from having a foundation which was transparent to then something like this, which when you dig, and this was just the surface digging. I'm sure there is a lot more underneath this, but I'm going to be careful. Why would they? Unless there is a nefarious reason. Why would you need to hide what money you've got coming in, who's donating, if it wasn't something shady. You know, even if they're losing sponsors, that's not a massive thing. I know that it's a sense of pride for her, but I don't think that's enough. It feels to me that they are getting in bed with certain people, and remember there was links to Soros. I think they're getting in bed with some very unscrupulous people, and I think they're going to get donations, and I think there is going to be some element of something political going on here. And I think this is very concerning. And I think people need to be very aware of this. How? I don't know, but I think they do. Like I said in my last video, she's like a Trojan horse. And I think this is why people are utilizing her, because, you know, especially when you've got people that probably don't like the royal family, they're going to be the perfect two to utilize. Harry and Meg. Harry is just, I'm sorry, but he's not bright, and he will probably go along with whatever, but he is a small fish in a very big sea of sharks. Meghan, to me, is a baby shark. You know, she might seem in her little corner of the world, she might seem unscrupulous, and she is, but she might seem like she's the biggest shark in the water. But they've now gone into like the ocean, and there are bigger sharks. And she is also going to be out of her depth, even if she doesn't think she is. And this, I think, is going to get very messy. I think there's some serious issues here. And whether the royal family are aware, and I don't know, but to me, the fact that they're still linked on the royal website, he's still in the line of succession. This is deeply, deeply worrying, in my opinion. And I think it's very naive for the royal family to think that some of these people that could be behind some of this, that could even have a vested interest in positioning Harry and Meghan somewhere. And I'm going to be careful what I say here, because this is all allegedly. This is just me speaking. It could happen. I don't know. Give me your thoughts. What do you think? I think, but I'm concerned. I think this is getting very dark, and I don't understand why the royal family are not doing something about this. I think it's very negligent, and I don't know whether they're naive. I really don't. I don't know, or whether what she's got, which I think is obviously the truth about the children, possibly. But even so, it's like this is just getting darker and darker by the minute, I feel. But like I say, let me know what you think in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you want me to delve further into things, then drop in the comments what you'd like me to look into, because even though I talk about them, I don't just want to regurgitate what's in the mainstream media. So if you want me to look into different things, let me know. But obviously bear in mind, I've got to be a little bit careful, because I think even though I'm under 100k, if my channel grows anymore, I might start getting on the radar of certain people, and I want to be careful of that. So, but I'll do my best. So let me know what you think. I also want to give a shout out to a friend of mine. She put something in the Urban Dictionary, unsussexful, as in unsuccessful, and they accepted it into the Urban Dictionary. So I'm just going to put this up here. Apparently there's merch as well, but I don't know if she gets any money from the merch, but if she does, then please support her, because I think this is, she's often said it, I've seen it on social media, and so now they've actually recognised it, and so well done to her. I think this is great when we get something recognised. So yeah, so go and give her a support. Yeah, so that's it from me. As you know, all the links are in the description box below if you want to treat me to a coffee, become a member, go on Patreon if you want the full podcast, because you get half an hour here, but you get the full hour on Patreon. And also if you're a member, if you want to buy me something from Amazon wishlist, thank you to everyone who does buy me something. I don't always get if you want a response from me, please drop your email address, because then I can reply to you and say thank you. Because I don't do the unboxing on here, because I don't want to, I know it sounds awful, but I don't want to rub it into people that I get these things, because I know it's difficult for people sometimes when they don't really get things, and so I don't want to do that. But I would like to say thank you to everybody who writes to me, who sends me things, and especially also for Arthur and the cats. That's really lovely, and for people sending me headbands, it's like I do really appreciate you all. So thank you for your love and support, and keep subscribing, please, to get me to my 100k. I'm really, really, really hoping that I can get there by the end of this year. So yeah, that being said, as always, look after yourself, and I will see you in the next video. And you know that I love you, I appreciate you, but most of all, I respect you. Take care. Bye-bye. Mwah.